Good evening, Bayou Blitz family and all of Who Dat Nation. We'd like to welcome you to this Wednesday's edition of the Bayou Blitz Podcast. I am Bob Rose. I am one of your semi-capable hosts for the evening, and joining me as a much more capable host after he escaped Las Vegas last week is Brendan Boylan. How are you tonight, Brendan?
I'm doing good. Yeah, escape's a good word. Caught up on my sleep schedule. It took a little bit, 3 hour difference. It really hit me I think I came back Friday. It really hit me on Sunday, midday. Wow, I lost 3 hours of sleep. But I'm good.
Hey, dude, if that's all you lost coming out of Vegas, then that's a win.
Yeah, I did fine. As we were talking about off air, I did more than fine. But no, happy to be back. Happy to get back into the swing of things. We had a weird short week, and I was gone, and the Saints didn't give us a whole lot to talk about in terms of the positive side on Thursday night. So we thought, at least for you guys back home, and opposed to sitting there and rehashing what you've heard for the last 6 days, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the Las Vegas Raiders and the New Orleans Saints in Week 8. We got some special guests today, Bob.
We do. First of all, it's still weird. It will always be weird to me to say Las Vegas Raiders. I'm fine with Los Angeles. I grew up kind of, with the Los Angeles Raiders, between stints in Oakland. But they're out in Vegas. That city is excited to have them. We are excited to have, our two special guests tonight, Tom Viola and Jason Halperin. They are sports talk show hosts from 720 a.m. KDWN in Las Vegas. I've been on their show before. The guys are both really good sports minds. I've been looking forward to this show ever since the NFL schedule came out. So I'm really happy to welcome Tom and Jason to our program.
Let's go ahead and bring them in. There's Tom. There's Jason. Guys, like I said off air, I was there last week. We could have flown Bob in. We could have had a really good time doing a show live. Knowing Bob, Lord knows where we would have done the show live from. It could have been off the street on the strip. It could have been in a casino, but nonetheless, this might be a little bit more professional and better for everybody here.
Maybe just a bit, but we absolutely wish we could have linked up with you. Just two ships in the night, I guess.
Hey, next time. I'm sure I'll be out there sooner than later, Bob. We'll see if we can get you and Lauren out there soon, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, when Jason and I would go out back in the day, we would both take separate cash and separate credit cards just in case. And Bayou Blitz fam, I will let you fill in the just in case blank. Tom, folks, I'm just getting to know Tom a little bit. He's a great guy. Like I said, a great sports mind. Jason and I have been friends for 31 years. Former roommates, former teammates, doubles partners with multi East Coast championships. But he himself is a great football mind too. And like I said, these two guys put on a great show. Tell our listeners how they could tune into your show, guys.
Well, if you want to tune in, we are on SportsX Radio. You don't have to be in Las Vegas, although if you are, 720 AM, 1017 FM, KDWN Las Vegas. But sportsxradio.com has the show. It's Monday through Friday with Ken Thompson, a good friend of ours and another fantastic sports mind. And we kind of pick up the slack for him because Ken can't make 5 days a week. He has to travel between Phoenix and Vegas a lot. So we like to fill in for him where we can. And then you can also find my work on unabated.com.
For those that are looking for me, I am pretty much just doing the show with Tom. You're not going to find me on any other broadcast right now, but you will be able to find me on Twitter at LV Hitman or on Instagram at LV Hitman.
This is the first I've heard of Jason having a Twitter.
Me too. I thought he was anti-social media.
Yeah,
absolutely am, but finally had to get with the times.
Welcome to the club.
Guys, it's as you all know, it's a necessary evil with what we do. That doesn't mean we need to open up the entire world to our social life. But it is fun to not exploit, kind of just throw out and promote our work through social media, Twitter, Facebook, what have you. So Jason, I'm glad you dove head first into the dysfunctional pool. Had
to finally jump in there. It Was on the sideline forever. It was finally time to take the plunge.
Twitter's a hell site, but it's a site that I can't quit it. It is absolutely my drug, where every day I see something and I'm just like, how is this website free? This is just ridiculous content.
I'm with you. It's the best.
It really is. And in my opinion, it's not nearly as dysfunctional as Facebook, especially the individual Facebook groups. No offense intended to anybody that's tuning in that dives into Facebook. But if you go into Facebook and not Twitter, you're missing out. Like Tom said, it's an entertaining venue. Facebook infuriates me. Twitter will at least make me laugh, but I can click off of that.
I'm a New York Jets fan, and I was in a couple Jets Facebook groups for a little while, and it had me questioning the literacy rate of America. It was so bad. It was so bad in there. I was like, I can't do this. This is not the place for intelligent football discussion.
Speaking of intelligent football conversation, Tom, I know you're a Jet fan. I learned that about you when I came on you guys' show a couple months back. So you have to be sitting pretty. Jason, you, my friend, are a lifelong Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yes,
now you're an Ohio State Buckeyes fan too, so I know you always have that to fall back on. The Steelers, along with our Saints and our Raiders, they've given you kind of a rough start to the year.
Very rough start, but I expected it. I was not one of those fans, one of those Yinzer fans out there that was saying that this is not the year we're going to get our number 7 there. We're going to get our number 7. No, the only number 7 we were going to get this year was going to go up in the rafters as we put Big Ben's number up there. That would be about it. It's pretty much unfolding the way I thought it was going to unfold. I still think personally that you're looking at 7 wins, maybe 8 if you can really stretch it out, but more than likely we're looking at 7 wins for the Steelers this year, and finally putting an end to hearing about Tomlin's reign of not having a losing season. So we can finally put that one to bed and not have to hear it anymore.
I mean, the reality with this team is it's a rebuild. This is a team entering a rebuild right now, and it's going to get ugly before it gets good. You don't want 7 wins. You want 3 wins so you can get one of those top draft picks. 7 wins is the death sentence where you're stuck in those middle picks.
Now, what's interesting, though, is that the interesting thing here is that the Steelers are not far off from the Saints when you look at it. The Saints and the Steelers are very much mirror images. As you had those franchise quarterbacks, those Hall of Fame quarterbacks for so many years, and winning was expected. And now we're finally seeing what those other teams were going through, aka the Jets. We're finally seeing what those teams had to deal with for all those years of not having or not getting that franchise quarterback. Now the Saints and the Steelers are in that same boat.
Hey, Jason, that's a great segue and a great point. And to catch everybody up, to catch Saints fans up, in case you didn't already hear, Dennis Allen did officially announce today that Andy Dalton will be the starter for Week 8 against the Las Vegas Raiders. That surprised a lot of us that figured that Jameis Winston would be healthy enough to take the reins. But Allen went out of his way to say that this is not a health question. It's he used the quote offensive decision. Now, I'm biting my tongue when I say that, but nevertheless, they're going to roll with Andy Dalton. But as far as quarterback is concerned, the Raiders seem to have one of the better ones. One of the ones that I like to watch in Carr. Now, in recent weeks, they've committed more to running the football, and their offensive results and Carr's success have actually shown greater improvement with that. But what are you guys seeing? You brought in a new head coach this offseason, McDaniels over from the Patriots, so it probably took a couple weeks for the offensive players in particular to get caught up on his system. Does Derek Carr look comfortable running this offense to both of you?
I'm going to say, honestly, I'm going to say yes. You have to look at the statistics that this team is dealing with right now. They're the 3rd highest scoring team in the league. The Giants might be the most fraudulent team at 5-1. I'd argue the Raiders have the 2nd most fraudulent record. This team is not a 2-win team. I'm not saying that they're a contender, but this team was in every game that they've played in. battled some good teams very close, like the Chiefs. And the reality is the proof is in the pudding here. You look at their DVOA rating on offense, and it's really not that bad here for this team. They're 12th in the league, which is right around, you're slightly above average here on offense. And you've had to deal with some injuries at this point. The offensive line is still coming together. You've used more combinations of offensive linemen than any other team in the league so far this season. That's difficult to overcome. And Derek Carr's still been throwing the football very well. Having Devontae Adams there is huge for him. Now having Hunter Renfrow back, that was another bad injury that they've now been able to overcome. I think that over the course of the second half of this season, and if you want to go out there and take a futures bet on Raiders to make the playoffs, now is the time to do so. You're not going to get a better price. And they're projected to be favored in 11 of their 12 remaining games. This is a team with a favorable second half schedule here. And I really do think that we haven't seen them play up to their full potential. And on the offensive side and the defensive side, the defense has dealt with a ton of injuries to the secondary, which wasn't a great spot for them to begin with. It's by far the weakness of this team. And when you couple that with the injuries, all of a sudden they're starting their fourth and fifth string corners from last season in games. That's not going to be a recipe for a success, especially against these passing offenses that they've had to face here. I think that we're going to see this team steadily continue to improve, and the offense has already shown that they have the capability to put up points.
I definitely see improvement out of this team on the second half of their schedule. Their commitment to running the ball, I mean, they are, let's face it, Josh Jacobs is absolutely the workhorse on this team. He is doing it all. The guy's averaging, I believe it's close to 110 yards a game, somewhere in that neighborhood, for a team that's only averaging 128 yards a game. So he's pretty much going to be your workhorse. That takes a lot of the pressure off of Derek Carr. It has, at least up to this point, allowing him and the rest to really learn this offense. And as Tom said, as this team gets healthy, there's really nothing that's going to stop them on this soft schedule they have remaining. I mean, they have one of the weakest schedules in the league still to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask you guys this because we talked about it a little bit. A lot of people surprised that Jameis isn't going to be starting for New Orleans, and you look at a guy like Andy Dalton, and this decision was based off of performance. Now you have a guy like Dalton who's 1-2 as a starter. In his defense, you look at the numbers, and the Saints have been, at least according to the scoreboard, which lies sometimes, have been in every game that Dalton has started, particularly the first two starts. But Tom, I'll kind of focus this question on to you. With the Saints starting Andy Dalton against a pass defense that ranks dead last in fantasy football in terms of allowing points to the opposing quarterbacks, is Andy Dalton a bargain start this week?
In fantasy, I mean, I wouldn't call him a bargain. I think that there are plenty of better options out there, and you have to keep an eye on Chris Olave. I'm not positive on what his status is for this week just yet, but I think that he could be a pretty good start. I think that the problem for him, though, is going to be in the fact that this Raiders defensive line is good at getting to the quarterback, and Andy Dalton worries me because he's not one of those elusive guys that's going to be able to break, contain, and make plays with his feet to extend the play. That's going to be a concern. If the pressure's getting to him, that's how you beat him as a quarterback. And I personally just think if you're in a bind in fantasy this week, it's not as bad as last week's bye week where you had Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, everybody and their mother was out that week. I think that you should be able to find some possibly better options here in this one. But I do also think that if you are truly against the wall and it's slim pickings on the waiver wire here, if you look at the total for this game, it's a good way to indicate where Vegas thinks that the scoring is going to be. And that's really good for fantasy, being able to just look at the total. If it's a high total game, then Vegas is clearly thinking there's going to be more scoring in this contest. This game's set at 49 right now. If your back is against the wall, I definitely wouldn't put him high up my rankings, but there are worse options that you can probably go with this week.
Jason, I'd like to jump to the defensive side if I could, and I'd like to hear from both of you on this too. The Raiders just traded Jonathan Hankins to the Cowboys. That made my jaw drop a little bit because at least looking at the team last year, Hankins, outside of Max Crosby, Hankins was their best defensive lineman, especially against the run. In your opinion, why did the Raiders make this move? Is it because they're comfortable with the depth that they have at the interior, or was Hankins just not playing well and they felt the need to move on, sell high, so to speak?
I think it was probably a combination of both. I think they were going to be able to get the sell high, get decent value for them, and I also think that they do have the depth that they want in that front seven there. They've definitely been able to show they can handle the run. Their problem is the pass. Their front seven, they're going to be able to get pressure. And as long as they keep getting pressure, I don't think this was a trade that was going to really hurt them. Tommy?
I'm honestly not sure. I was a little bit surprised, but he's not really a guy that's been making a lot of waves so far this season for the Raiders. I think that some of the reality here, though, is they were looking at the contract, and let's face it, if this team doesn't turn it around this season, they can blow it all up. The regime in charge now didn't draft, didn't hire, didn't sign any of these guys. True. And they could completely tear down this roster and start from scratch. You probably are stuck with Devontae Adams with that contract, but everybody else there you can get rid of. And they could have been looking at the writing on the wall for trade deadline and said, you know what, we're okay with our depth at D-line right now. Let's get him out of there and see what some of these other young guys can do. But like Derek Carr's contract is completely fake. It's a 1-year deal that they can extend after. They can get rid of him for next to nothing next season. Same with Darren Waller. Yeah, they just re-signed him, but you could still potentially see him moving on. Lord knows that he's dealt with injury troubles. Some team will be looking for a tight end. One of those teams, like the Bills, they were in the rumor mill for Christian McCaffrey. Dawson Knox is pretty good, but I doubt that they would shake their heads at maybe trading away a 5th-round pick, parting with a late to mid-round pick to try and pick up a guy like Darren Waller, who could be that missing piece for them. You're not going to see the Raiders trade too many pieces away here and now, but watch out this offseason. If this season continues to go the way it has, they could very well just cut bait on everybody.
Brendan?
Looking at this week, and, you guys kind of alluded to it with the Raiders' record doesn't speak for how good of a football team this can be. I think some Saints fans would agree with you if you were talking about the Saints as well. However, Bob and I here would probably agree that the Saints are a 2-5 football team. When you look at the New Orleans Saints from the opposite end of the spectrum, what are some things that you like about the Saints? What are some things that worry you in this matchup?
I mean, one thing that I like, and frankly, I'm more on the side of Saints fans than you guys here. Not saying you aren't fans, of course, but I'm more on the side of the public in this one, because you look at their Massey Peabody rating. The Raiders are actually 9th this week, and the Saints, they're right there at 11th. They're right there with them. So that alone is telling you that this team, is probably a little bit better than their record has indicated thus far. You had some tough games there. That was a tough loss in London to the Vikings. That really, they put a lot into that game. And of course, that's hard to come back from, but they've been able to do that. They've battled with some of these injuries here. Chris Olave getting hurt is awful. Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston, you're dealing with the uncertainty at quarterback, but you still have Taysom Hill, who weirdly does good things, and no one can really predict when he's going to explode for your fantasy team, but he's a talented player. He's a talented playmaker. And then you've also still got one of the best running backs in the game in Alvin Kamara, who is also no stranger to Vegas trips, as we well know. But there's still a lot of good pieces here. It's mostly just injuries that have been the problem. On the defensive side, you have one of the best corners in the game and one of the best secondary units overall. There's a lot of talent here. And the other good piece of news is, even with a poor record right now, look at the division around you. The Buccaneers aren't doing so hot. They're still beatable. The Panthers, they got their big win. They're done. They can go home now. And the Falcons are just the Falcons. They kind of exist in this weird space where Marcus Mariota is kind of good and their passing offense is just weird, and they don't seem to want to make fantasy owners happy at all. But it's a very beatable and winnable division. And even with the record that you've got going right now, there's still plenty of time to turn that around and make a push for the playoffs.
I couldn't agree more with you, Tom. Focusing on the defense side, the secondary, I mean, they have a great ball hawking secondary when they're healthy. I mean, if we're able to get Lattimore back in there, that would be great. I know he's been dealing with some injuries the past couple weeks. But at the end of the day, though, you're also looking at Jordan and Davis. These guys are finding a way to get to the quarterbacks. And in this division, there is, it's an open division right now. You don't know what to expect out of anybody else. And the Saints are right there in it. They have had some tough losses to begin with, but they still have to come through and play the rest of their division, which they can easily take this division if they get healthy.
Guys, you're right. You both have sounded more positive than either Brendan or I have about the Saints in recent weeks. And I agree with you both. There is I've written about, Brendan and I have both written about this in our articles. The talent is there for a run. But looking at the Saints defense, a unit that I think everybody, even the most pessimistic people, thought was going to be very formidable this year, has been extremely porous, especially against the run, and vulnerable to big plays in recent weeks. And I'm looking at a defensive tackle unit for New Orleans that's been absolutely invisible, thereby putting more pressure on Jordan and Davenport to make plays against double teams. Lattimore's been out. You guys are both right, which cripples the secondary that has been playing with two underachieving safeties in Matthew and May that were brought in specifically to make plays and have done anything but. Those two spots, safety and defensive tackle, have absolutely crippled the Saints. Looking at your Raiders squad, what position or two do you think are glaring weaknesses on either side of the ball for this team, especially going into this week?
Oh, it's absolutely. It is secondary and line. Secondary and offensive line are the problems. They've been the bugaboos for the Raiders for just about ever. Their offensive line was good several years back when Derek Carr had his really fantastic season that got derailed by that injury at the end and was just heartbreaking for Raiders fans. But on the offensive side, this line struggles to keep him upright. He has some mobility to his game, but he doesn't like to use it, or at least he didn't under Gruden. And apparently that might have been a coaching thing. And McDaniels is saying you can get outside the pocket and run a little bit more. But that offensive line is absolutely susceptible to pass rush. It's a miracle that Josh Jacobs is able to do what he does in the backfield, given the blocking that he's going to get. And then the secondary, Jonathan Abram is a safety who should have been playing in the 80s, not the 2022. He's just not the right safety for this era. He's a hard hitter. He's not that great in coverage. Your cornerbacks have been just nothing but injured this whole season, and you just don't have the talent to keep up with elite wide receiving units on the outside. It's a good thing that you don't play in a division with any elite passing attacks, like, maybe a Patrick Mahomes, but that's the problem for this team. They don't have the defensive power to stop you when an offense decides it needs to go to the air. And the only way that they're going to be able to do that is by generating that pressure up front. If Max Crosby doesn't have a good game, they're kind of just out of luck. Chandler Jones has been massively underperforming so far this season. I think they're regretting trading away Yannick Ngakoue and picking him up. But against the Chiefs, he did finally start to show some promise. He finally started to show some of what made him so great in this league for so long and back at college at Syracuse. And I think that they need to see more out of that, because this defensive line is the bread and butter and the heart and soul of this defense. If they're not playing well, it's a bad day and they're going to be stuck in a shootout, which their offense can handle. But as we've seen by their record, they've ended up on the wrong side of those almost every game this season.
Yeah, I think the biggest glaring weakness to me is that offensive line. The Raiders have blown that line up multiple times, and they still have not been able to find the right formula to get this ship righted. Somehow, though, they're still able to run the ball behind that offensive line. These guys the linemen haven't forgotten how to block for Jacobs. But it's definitely been I think a thorn in the side of Carr, though, because he's been under a little bit more pressure than he really should be facing at this point. It is a youthful offensive line. You're looking at 6 years is the veteran on those lines. So if they can come around and gel, then they're going to actually be able to take some of that pressure off and let that offense. I hate to say it, but cook a little more. Hate to use the Russ term there, but they'll be able to cook a little more and really start controlling the ball, controlling a little bit more of the game, taking a little pressure off that defense and off that secondary. As Tom pointed out, that secondary is another glaring weakness, has been forever for the Raiders. It's never been a strong point, and for some reason they haven't been able to fix it. I don't know if they're not wanting to fix it or if they just can't find the right pieces to fix it.
Looking at this going into week 8, I think for a lot of Saints fans, they look at not just this week, but a lot of these weeks coming up as must-win games, especially games at home. Out there in Las Vegas, do you feel like the public is viewing this game in New Orleans as a must-win?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, at this point, every game is a must-win for this team, but this is a good chance. You're rebounding here. You're building off of that win versus Houston coming off of the bye week. You need to take another step forward here. If this team is going to compete in this division, because Lord knows you can kiss the division title goodbye. Chiefs are running away with that just like every year right now, but the rest of the division hasn't lived up to the hype. And the entire AFC, really, the NFL has perfected parity to the point where every team is bad now. You can make a rebound at this point in the season and still get to one of those wild card spots, and their division makes that pretty easy. I think we need to start admitting that the Chargers are not good at football. This team was touted as a preseason Super Bowl team. What have they shown you that has shown anything remotely like they can do that? I still think Justin Herbert is very talented, but their offense doesn't like to have him throw beyond the line of scrimmage. So what's even the point of having that arm that he has? And then defensively, they've been riddled with injuries and they haven't been able to beat anybody. And then we don't even have to get into how bad the Broncos are. There's plenty of opportunity here for the Raiders, but they have to take advantage of the schedule. And it starts by being able to go on the road and win games like this against teams like the Saints that I'm sorry to say it, but you're dealing with quarterback controversy and a lot of injuries. And this is a favorite spot for the Raiders. You're favored by 1.5 on the road right now. You got to go out and get business done to get these wins and get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely think the Raiders fans out here and the media in general are looking at this as a must-win game. Being that 1.5 favorite, the one thing I will say is that the Raiders do have one good thing going for them. To win close games is that if they can get Carlson on the field, he's automatic. You're looking at anything 50 plus. He's 5 for 5. He's 16 for 16 on the year so far. At the end of the game, you really want it on his foot if you need it.
Yeah, but if my kicker is kicking 5 50-yard field goals in a season, that's a bad sign. I don't care if he's automatic from the distance. I care about the fact that my team can't finish drives in the end zone. Kicking is for losers, and that's one of the big problems for this Raiders team right now is stalled drives ending in field goals. They don't win you football games.
Can you get a T-shirt made that says
like
kickers?
New England might disagree with you on that one.
Huh?
So I think New England might disagree with you on that one. They won a couple of those big games with a couple of rings they got at the end on the foot of a kicker.
You don't win games by scoring field goals. You can win a game at the end with a field goal. You don't win by scoring field goals as your main source of offense here.
I'm more apt to agree with Jason, but Tom just dropped the Bayou Blitz line of the year. Kicking is for losers.
I cannot take credit for it. Westgate's John Murray came up with that one, but it's just so fantastically true. And every week, if you follow him on Twitter, at Vegas Murray, gonna shout him out. Great dude. And every week when you see it, when there's a team that gets into the red zone and gets down to like 4th and goal from the 3 and they kick the field goal, every single week you just see everyone go to John Murray like, hey, what do you think of that kick there? It is just, if it's 4th and reasonable like that, just go for it. You're not winning the game by kicking the field goals, especially the most maddening of all is when you kick in a 14-point game to make a 2-score game, a 2-score game. That is the worst, and it blows my mind that teams do that. That and running on inches situations out of the shotgun. Those are the two things that I do not understand in football.
Jason and I used to watch a lot of football together. Some of it sober, and
not much.
Not much. We used to love watching Marty Schottenheimer coach teams because we would do nothing but make fun of it. I actually blame Marty Schottenheimer for the school of thought that we see today when a game is on the line and a team starts playing. At the end of the game, like you pointed out, Tom, at the end of the game, they start playing for a 45 or 50-yard field goal when there's still plenty of time on the clock, and you might even have some timeouts in your pocket to move the ball. Even if you're not going to score a touchdown, why wouldn't you do these poor kickers a favor and make it a 25 or a 28-yard field goal? And like I said, Jason and I would always, we love watching Marty Schottenheimer coach teams because we did nothing but make fun of them.
Absolutely. Jason and I certainly have a spirited disagreement right now about the Raiders play calling a few weeks ago.
Yes, the analytics of it.
Yeah,
we all agree to disagree.
It was the Chiefs game where they went for the 2-point conversion that failed.
That was painful. I know. Yeah, I know the play you were talking about. The only Raiders game I've watched from beginning to end was that one. And the Chiefs are one of the few opponents that I root for the Raiders to win. Because growing up a Broncos fan, a long-suffering Broncos fan. I hate Josh McDaniels. I despise Josh McDaniels on a personal level. But I actually hate the Chiefs more than I do the Raiders. So I was rooting for you guys that week.
In my closet, I actually have a New York Jets Tim Tebow jersey.
Beautiful.
I call it a collector's item because if you recall, when he got traded to the Jets, it was the same week that the contract for jersey manufacturing went from Adidas to Nike, and I picked up Adidas was just selling everything they could on sale, including custom jerseys. And so I actually have an Adidas Tebow jersey from right before Nike filed the injunction to say, hey, hang on a second, don't let Adidas take potential profits from us here. We're going to start manufacturing these and selling them tomorrow. So I think it's one of 100 in existence.
I was going to say, maybe not to that degree, but I think every sports fan in the world has that one jersey in their closet that just makes absolutely no sense.
That's all of my jerseys because the Jets. I stopped buying Jets jerseys a while ago because I was just done. When Sam Darnold became the quarterback, I bought it's on the wall here somewhere behind me. I bought the Funko Pop instead because it was $10 instead of $90, and I'm not investing in a quarterback like that anymore with this trash ass team. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be.
You're being honest though, so
yeah. The last jersey I ever purchased, the last real one I ever purchased was Darrelle Revis when he came back the second time, because they didn't update the website immediately and still had jerseys on clearance from his first stint in New York. $20, that's all it was. And I was like, perfect. I'm done buying jerseys. The only other one that I have in my closet, well, I got a couple bad Jets quarterbacks. I got the Brett Favre one, and then I actually have a Drew Brees jersey in my closet. He was just always one of my favorite players.
Was he still with the Chargers when you got that one?
No, Saints. Because I love that gold and black. I love that color scheme.
Oh yeah, Jay and I have been fans of Drew Brees since Purdue. And I hate the Chargers too. But you're right. Brees was always one of my favorites to watch. And the day that he got traded for the Saints, I was worried about his shredded shoulder, like a lot of Saints fans. But once he showed that he could play, I hoped and I thought that the sky would be the limit for the Saints. But before Brees, outside of a couple exceptions, just like your Jets, Tom, the Saints had decade after decade of just poor quarterback play. The guy behind me, Jim Everett, which who Brendan and I have gotten to know a little bit. I've had the good fortune to talk to a lot. Great guy. Still played some good football when he got to New Orleans. But that poor guy had the dumbest luck in the world. He was drafted by the Rams. They traded Eric Dickerson away a year later. Then they got Jerome Bettis, the Rams did, and then they traded Everett to the Saints a year later. Everett comes to the Saints, who had that playoff run with that Dome Patrol defense. Everett comes to the Saints. The Dome Patrol starts signing off in free agency to other teams. That was bad luck play. But other than that, Saints fans, especially older Saints fans, they feel your pain, that you've gone through with Jets quarterbacks.
We've just been looking for the savior ever since Namath.
Bob, what's the worst jersey you have in your collection? Well, I guess we'll make a segment out of it. Everybody go through. What's the worst jersey you have?
That's fair. I've never been huge on buying jerseys, but the worst jersey that I have is probably Eric Decker. Eric had Eric Decker Bronco jersey, and Eric had a few nice years with Denver. I like Demaryius Thomas better, but I just happened to get a Decker jersey. That's probably the worst jersey I got.
He was good for the Jets.
He was.
Wasn't a bad career though. It's not like you got a jersey.
That man got to marry Jesse James Decker. He won at life. He's all set.
He did.
Jason, what's the worst jersey you have in your closet?
Well, I can start with my Pascal Dupuis jersey for the Penguins there. I actually bought that one by mistake. Thought I was grabbing a Letang jersey, ended up being a Dupuis jersey. And I think I'm the only one that has ever bought a Pascal Dupuis jersey, by the way. I really do. I wore it to a Penguins Knights game out here, and I think people were looking at me going, "Who is that guy?" Like even Penguin fans were going, "Who is that guy? Did he ever play for them?" As far as football goes, I would probably say the fact that I have an AB jersey.
Not aging well.
Yeah, it's one of those. It doesn't really come out of the closet very much. It stays in there collecting dust as much as possible. Really don't like to bring that one out.
It could be worse. You could be a Raiders fan with a Henry Ruggs jersey.
That you could.
Very true.
That you could.
Very true. Very true. I was gonna say though, go to hockey though. Pascal Dupuis, was he not a part of one of those teams that won the Stanley Cup?
We won a couple with him.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Absolutely was. He didn't have a bad career. It's just one of the guys that you just weren't going to buy a jersey for. Absolutely. It was kind of like buying a Kevin Stevens jersey for the Penguins back in the day. Yeah, the guy put up numbers, but you didn't really want to get that jersey because he was more or less the beneficiary of the people he played with.
I remember Dupuis in his very short stint in Atlanta with the Thrashers. That's where I remember Pascal. But anyway, worst jersey I have. God, I'm a Charlotte Hornets basketball fan, so I know I have some bad ones for years. The Bobcat days. Adam Morrison probably. Number 3 overall pick out of Gonzaga. That didn't. So Adam Morrison's probably up there. Saints wise, I don't have a lot of bad ones. I mean, I've been pretty fortunate over my lifetime and seeing good Saints football. Maybe the most obscure one, I have a Garrett Hartley jersey. I don't know if that, you can say it didn't really age well, but I mean, he's a Saints legend forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the worst. It's the most obscure. You don't see a lot of guys wearing kicker jerseys because, what did we say earlier? Kicking is for losers. So
kickers are losers.
The only other jersey that I would purchase, and I was very upset when he went to the Giants instead of the Jets, is Riley Dixon, the Rams punter. If he ever goes to the Jets, I'm 1,000% buying that jersey.
Well, punters and kickers are different. McAfee made it to where punters are cool.
Yeah.
But kickers, I just haven't had that kind of luck.
I absolutely love Pat McAfee. I mean, you're completely right. He has made punters cool, but One time I managed to set up an interview with him when I was still working for a company out here called VSIN. I was producing for Brent Musburger, and I managed to get a hold of Pat's producer and was like, hey, would he want to come on with Brent? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it was never hard to get interviews with Brent. And so I'm calling him up like right before his segment, getting him all set up. And I just go, hey, Mr. McAfee, how's it going? He's like, oh, I'm good. How are you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. We're going to get you set up. Audio guy's going to check your levels and we'll have you right on. So you just sit tight there. Okay, Cuzzy? And he just goes, hey, I liked it. You said that. Like he knew instantly that I was someone who listened without me going, oh, I'm such a big fan. You're so great. And I let it be that way. And I leave that as one of the cooler numbers I have in my phone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to go through some of these guys, some of our listeners and their jerseys, Bob. Scoob has a James Laurinaitis Saints jersey.
Oh, dude, I'm so sorry.
Bad. That's bad.
He was so good in college.
He was.
He was great in Madden a couple years, too.
He was.
Yeah.
Now, see, guys, I'm a little guy, so I had to, if I buy jerseys, and I had a Carl Mecklenburg jersey when I was younger, but I'm a little guy, so those longer names, they would go across my shoulder blade like an upside down U. So it just that might be one of the reasons why I didn't own a lot of jerseys too.
I don't think I'll ever purchase a real jersey again. Honestly, they cost too much money and. They're just some knockoff websites. The knockoff websites sell you stitched jerseys. They're better. They're objectively better than the painted on ones. You can throw them in the wash 100 times and they don't wear out. Why would you spend $90 when you could spend 20 and get a better product?
Well, not only that, guys, you have established players now changing their numbers. I had to laugh, and Saints fans, I love you, but I had to laugh my butt off when the flood of people bought number 80 Jarvis Landry jerseys when he first signed. It was not only Saints fans, it was LSU fan base too. So it was an incredible number of people. And then Jarvis changes his number to 5 before the start of the regular season. I won't lie, I laughed. But that's another reason why, one of many why I won't buy any more jerseys either.
And it would be nice if a team would just go, hey, you know what, we get it. Send in your jersey, we'll give you the right one.
Sure.
Like that would be a nice gesture. I was almost going to make fun of people for buying a Jarvis Landry jersey at this stage in his career, but then I remembered the whole connection there means a lot more.
Yeah. You don't want to get me started on that avenue of fan though.
Yeah, let's not. Let's save that for a different time, maybe off the air conversation.
Right.
So let's keep going through these. Mike Bell, it's an interesting one. Most obscure, John Butler says Scott Fujita. He was a Super Bowl champion, though. Does Ricky Williams qualify? Yeah, if you have a Ricky Williams Saints. If you have a Ricky Williams Saints jersey, yeah, I guess that qualifies. But you trade your whole future for him, I'd probably get a jersey too.
A Reggie Bush Niners jersey.
That's that. There you go. Any team after Detroit, really, for that's probably good. Ruben Mays. My dad has a Ruben Mays jersey. It's like
he was a damn good player.
Yeah. There you go. That's some of the obscure ones. But back to your regular scheduled programming. Nonetheless.
All right, guys. Is Josh McDaniels in trouble if the Raiders lose the next couple?
No. This isn't a Nathaniel Hackett situation. Yeah. This is very much like this is a new regime coming in. These aren't his players. It's a new offensive system. They will give him some time here. And that's partially because they simply, it's too soon. You're not going to blow things up after 1 year unless you're like 0-16. This Raiders team is definitely safe there. The other factor is they can't afford to pay another coach. They're still paying out Gruden's contract. They're paying McDaniels. This isn't the richest team in the league. They physically cannot afford to do that. And they're also having some front office troubles on the non-football side right now. I think there's a lot that ended up going into that stadium that was not quite on the level. And I think that we've seen a lot of turnover in that front office that tells me there's some behind-the-scenes non-football stuff going on that's not great.
Ouch.
Well, do you guys want to then talk to Saints fans about the fact that Dennis Allen's not going anywhere either? Can we open up that can of worms? Because
he's not going anywhere. Not especially because, like, first off, there's all the injuries that you've had this season, and it very much, it was a clear move. It was, we want to have the continuity here, but the reality is you lost an offensive legend of the game, and Dennis Allen, speaking from experience with the Raiders, not the same level of coach, but he's going to be there for a little longer because this team values the continuity. And also, again, like, injury luck buys you extra time. Look at Mike McCarthy in Dallas. He's terrible. He is not the reason that team wins football games. They win in spite of him. But Jerry Jones is also terrible. And on top of that, he's had so much injury luck that losing Dak Prescott every year is like a get out of jail free card for him. I think he's happy when Prescott goes down, because then he gets to just say, oh, well, it wasn't my fault. It was the quarterback getting hurt this year. Like, that man is just punching his meal ticket, despite the fact that Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn are the ones doing all the work.
Jason, your thoughts on either McDaniels or Allen's security?
I think that that both are going to be secure, at least for a couple years. More so probably McDaniels than Allen. I think they could be a shorter leash with him than you're going to see with McDaniels. Just because I think the Raiders have a few more pieces in place than what the Saints do, especially things such as quarterback. You went out, you got a big pricey receiver in here. The Saints have a little more work to do. They've got to go out and they've got to find that franchise quarterback again. You've got that piece with the receiver already. At least it looks that way with Olave. Mm-hmm. You're going to have question marks come up with Kamara and his problems off the field, as well as he's starting to reach the running back cliff as well. So you're going to have some issues there. So I think that could weigh in. And unfortunately, a coach is the first one to go. You're not necessarily, blowing up a team before you get rid of the coach. Those things usually do kind of go hand in hand, and he could just be the unfortunate casualty of that situation.
I do also think that he benefits from what's happening in the rest of the league this year, because a lot of teams are just kind of going to look around at the end of the season and be like, well, we didn't do as bad as those guys over there. Like, a lot of people are going to be looking at the Broncos and that dumpster fire.
Oh, hell yeah.
But there's teams all across. I mean, the Packers right now, what's going on with them? The Lions, they're just hard done. Nothing's happening there. They're gonna keep going for a few more years because I like what they're doing up there. Mm-hmm. But and then the entirety of the rest of the NFC South, I think Dennis Allen could outlast Todd Bowles as a coach. Quite frankly,
he could. Jason, you mentioned the running back cliff. The almighty running back cliff, which basically 27, 28 years old, and statistically. Running backs kind of fall off the cliff. Josh Jacobs himself is nearing said cliff. And I remember being on with you guys. I believe it was shortly after the Raiders announced they were not picking up Jacobs' option. And the three of us just discussing what a poor move what a big gamble that we thought that was. And hindsight is always 20/20, of course. But are you hearing, or in your opinions, do either of you believe that the Raiders are going to try to scramble, to sign Josh Jacobs to a long-term deal after the year?
I personally don't think they're going to. I think they're going to be just fine with parting ways with him. You look at the way they're just making him a workhorse this year. They're just going to run him into the ground if they can, because they know they don't have to worry about signing him. You've got other guys that are behind him. I mean, Jacobs he's 24, 25 by the end of the season. He's not quite at the running back cliff yet, not quite going over it, but they will have had his best years. So I think they're going to be good with parting ways with him. There's so many younger running backs coming in that you can grab one and you can get good years and get good production out of them, and not have to pay a running back the Zeke Elliott type of money that you saw Jerry Jones give, and he's regretting it ever since. You can go ahead and you can put that money elsewhere. You can put it in your offensive line. You can put it in your receivers. This game has really changed. It's more about that downfield throwing. It's not so much about the workhorse running backs. You see that with teams. Look what happened with Tennessee last year. Derrick Henry went down. The team still did well. As soon as he's back there, they went right back to running the ball and just running him into the ground, and it killed him in the playoffs. Absolutely killed him.
I don't necessarily agree with that assessment for the Titans, particularly last year, but I do absolutely agree that they're not re-signing Josh Jacobs. The reality is running backs don't matter at the end of the day. You look at any of these teams with a big contract running back here, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry,
Todd
Gurley. Todd Gurley back then. Saquon Barkley's different because I think he's still on his rookie deal, is he?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yeah,
I think they extended him. I think they gave him the extension for 1 year on it.
Yeah, still, even 1 year. That's you're not paying through the nose there. But these teams that sign these high-priced running backs here, Derrick Henry is already faded off. Is already starting to fall off the cliff. He's not looking like the same back this year. Joe Mixon is struggling. Any one of these running backs, Dalvin Cook, you take him out of the lineup, and then what is it? Alexander Madison, every time he plays, looks just as good for a fraction of the cost. Tony Pollard is probably the better running back than Ezekiel Elliott. I have him in fantasy. I'm very excited for this week with Zeke out here. But and then Christian McCaffrey, the Panthers just got rid of him, and the Niners really were the perfect fit. You have an injury-prone running back going into the most injury-prone running back system. It's a scheme fit right there. So that made perfect sense to me. But then you look at a team like the Bills, and they've got Devin Singletary. That's fine. The Bills don't run a lot. Maybe they're not the best example, but the teams that overpay for these running backs are investing money into a bad position where you can find replaceable cheap talent and be just fine. Kenyon Drake, Latavius Murray, these are the guys who had good weeks last week. You don't need an all-star running back in this league anymore, and paying one doesn't make any sense. The Raiders will just pick someone up next year and let someone else deal with paying Josh Jacobs, especially because he's getting to that point. And instead, they're just going to reap the benefits of him in a contract year, and they're going to be fine saying goodbye.
With only about 8 minutes left of the show, guys, I did want to ask you guys this. In order for the Raiders to walk out of the Superdome with a victory, they must do what well?
Score more points than the opponent.
That was an A+ answer right there. All right, guys, that's the show.
If they manage to do that, I think they'll come out with a win. But I do think it just comes down to, at the end of the day, protecting Derek Carr. If they can give him a clean pocket and let him operate this passing offense, especially with the injuries to the Saints here, the Raiders can very well come out of this game with a win. They are one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. And if they are able to operate that offense the way they want to, I don't know that the Saints can keep up with them. Just give it in a vacuum with everybody healthy. This is a really even game between two really good teams. With all the injuries, I'm a little more worried about what we're going to see out of the Saints than I am about what we're going to see out of the Raiders. And at the end of the day, they have their starting quarterback. And that's the biggest difference to me in this game. If Derek Carr can just go out and play a normal game for him, which admittedly might be tough. He's dealing with a back injury, kept him limited on practice today. It's worth watching heading into the weekend, but I still do think that if they can just keep him clean and keep him comfortable, they're going to be fine.
I think for the Raiders to come out of this with a win, I think that their defense, their front seven is going to have to really step up, put the pressure on Dalton, make him uncomfortable in the pocket, get the pressure, because we know that he's going to turn the ball over if that pressure comes on him, either through fumbles or through bad decision-making, bad passes downfield. To me, that's really going to be the turning point in the game, is getting the pressure on Dalton.
Guys, I'll flip the script a little bit before we sign you out. If you're the New Orleans Saints, how do you attack the Las Vegas Raiders on both sides of the ball to come out with a must-needed win for New Orleans?
I think you're going to go with a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill in this game. Use the trickeration, use the running backs that you have and the very good skill set that you have in the ground game to take advantage of a Raiders team that is weaker against the run. You can run on them now without Jonathan Hankins. He is a good run stopping player that is no longer on this team now for the Raiders, and they might miss that this week. But when you factor in, do you guys know the status on Chris Olave for the week?
Oh, Olave is going to play. Michael Thomas dressed for practice but didn't participate. And Jarvis Landry continues to be the invisible man.
Mm-hmm. I think that Jarvis is just the good news is you didn't bring him in to be a number one receiver for you, but right. I do think that this game you are going to win it on the ground and by trying to pick up some of those chunk plays with Olave. I don't really have a desire to bet this game because I think it could very well go either way, but I really do think that that they should try to exploit the Raiders defense on the ground if they want to win this.
I think the trick plays with Hill, with Taysom Hill there, they're going to be a big factor in this game. Everyone knows that they're coming. They just don't know when or how. The Saints have actually done a pretty good job of disguising them. So when they do hit, they are huge plays for them. I think Dalton's going to have to win this game as well, though. Not so much throwing downfield, but taking what the defense is willing to give them. Take those 6, 7, 8 yard passes. Don't go for the home run balls. You don't have the home run threat. Let's face it, Thomas is not. He's not going to be 100% even if he's playing. Callaway is not what everyone thought he was going to be. Use your possession receivers. Use Olave, use Kamara out of the backfield. Get it into the hands of the playmakers. Let them do the work for you. And that's going to be more in their short yardage passing.
Remember last year when Callaway was the late round steal of every fantasy draft?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I had him in one of mine.
and guys, I'd still take Callaway over Trashquan Smith. I'm sorry, I have to refer to Trashquan Smith at least once every Bayou Blitz episode. It was my only opportunity to fit him in.
Hey,
there's a reason we didn't mention him.
Right, exactly. And you hear that, Who Dat Nation? You get some mini praise for your offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael, from Jason Halperin, saying that that Pete has done a good job disguising how he's going to use Hill when Hill is in the game. So there we have it. We have our praise for Pete Carmichael for the week.
I mean, we haven't even got to Shaheed and what he's been able to do in terms of home run plays back-to-back weeks. I'm really interested to see how he gets sprinkled into the offense because it sounds like it's going to be continued that way. Yes, he was primarily brought to New Orleans because of his return ability, but the fact that he's showing to be more of an offensive threat and maybe even what Carmichael and the Saints offense hoped Deontay Hardy would be this year and last year as well in terms of as an offensive threat as well. That's going to be really interesting to see, especially if Landry and Thomas both miss time because, the Saints receivers, we talked about it a week ago or 2 weeks ago, Bob. Right now you got Smith, Callaway, Kevin White, Keith Kirkwood just got re-signed. That's my guy, but Keith Kirkwood just got re-signed. It's really slim pickings here.
Hey, Jason was a wide receiver at Robert Morris. Jay, you free agent? Can we sign you for a week?
I am definitely available. I would have to talk to my agent / wife, make sure it would be okay. But I'm sure she would give me the go ahead to drop down to Who Dat Nation and catch a few balls for him.
No, there you go.
I saw that man moving at soccer last night in the over 30 league. I do not think that his wife is going to be giving him that approval.
Hey, the hands were looking just fine in net last night, though. So not a problem there. The hands still work. You're not going to get a lot of yak out of me, but you will get the catches. There's no doubt about that.
Well, Jay, I'm just the opposite. I still got my 4.35 speed once, but my hands are gone and the body is broken down. So so together we might be able to put one athlete together for a short period of time.
Maybe a quarter.
I was going to say maybe one snap. So I'm glad that you guys have more faith in yourselves than I do.
Well, yeah, I mean, you always get a bigger ego from the athlete itself. We always feel that we have one more in us, even if it's just one more quarter. So, I'm more apt to agree with Jason that we have a quarter left in us than you, Brendan, that we have a play. And thanks for your faith, young broadcast partner.
I was gonna say you got me and Tom, the fantasy and the betting guys. So Tom and I might have the good bet here to say you guys wouldn't last a quarter.
Yeah, I'm taking the under on all your prop markets. I'm sorry.
I will make sure I take the over just to spite everybody on this show.
Then you'll end up like Calvin Ridley and suspended.
Don't forget, the other team will have the ball for a little bit of that time. I can actually hope that they have it for about 9 minutes of it, which only means I got to cover 6 minutes. Perfect.
Oh God, we need to do this more often because this show went off the rails a couple times, but this has been fun. All right, before we let you guys sign off, let's get some final score predictions from you guys for Raiders at Saints in Week 8. I know you guys said you wouldn't bet on this game because it could really go either way, but with the information you have now, injury statuses that you guys have right now, how do you see this one playing out?
Jason, you want to go first?
Yeah, this one's going to come down to the wire, and it's going to come down to what Tom does not like. It will come down to a kicker. Yes, it's going to come down to a kicker. It might not be a last-second one, but I think the difference of this one is going to be a kicker. 2 to 3 points, somewhere in that neighborhood. I definitely like the over in this game. I think points are going to be scored. I'm looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of a 30 to 27.
I think Jason's right. It's going to come down to a kicker. Whoever's kicker's on the field kicking field goals more, they're going to lose this game. I think that we're probably going to see somewhere. I don't think this is going to be as high scoring as people are thinking. A 50-point total. This feels more like an under spot to me, where we could get one of those 21-17, 24-10 kind of games. Because I think that one team is just going. I think both of these teams are going to run the ball a lot more than we're expecting. Mm-hmm. Because that the Raiders want to lean on Josh Jacobs here. They don't want to air it out quite a ton. And on the flip side, with the Saints, with Dalton, especially what we've seen out of the last few weeks, I think they're going to want to exploit that Raiders run defense as well. I have to say though, if I'm taking these teams and where they're trending for this season right now, I'm taking the Raiders in this one. I think this one is going to end 24-17.
See, I'm actually going to lean more with Jason. I would take the over in this game, and here's why. Yeah, I think both teams will run the ball, but we've seen how horrendous both these secondaries have been, and it's going to take one big play.
Yeah.
You look at what happened with Dalton last week, 3 interceptions, 2 of them returned for 6, but you had the deep bomb that I kind of forementioned with Shaheed. I mean, that's all it takes, and that's 6-7 points right there. So I'm going to take the over.
I mean, if Dalton's going to throw 2 more pick sixes, that's a really good recipe for an over.
Exactly. And I think Dalton will be better about not turning the ball over. I say that as the Saints lead the league in turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, I want to take the Saints in the matchup, but I don't see it. I don't see this being a game where New Orleans is going to be able to come out on top, because I do think the Raiders are a lot better than people give them credit for. So I'm going to take the Raiders in this game, 31-24.
Guys, y'all made great points, as I would expect all three of you would. Yeah, I do agree that the Saints and the Raiders are both going to want to / need to use their run game. But you look at Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, even Taysom Hill, they're all big play backs. They're all backs that will break big ones, usually multiple times in a game. The Raiders have seen what the Saints safeties look like, and especially if Marshawn Lattimore doesn't play, what the Saints corners are going to look like. You have Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, who I think is a grossly underrated receiver, and Darren Waller, who I expect to play. Olave is as good as advertised for the Saints. Juwan Johnson is a weapon that nobody is talking about that I think can make some plays too. people talk about the Saints turnovers, and rightfully so. I mean, they've been abysmal in that department. But of Dalton's 4 interceptions, in his 4 starts, 3 of them came in one game. So for the most part, he is taking care of the ball better. I keep waiting for the Saints defense to actually show up and show everybody what kind of unit that they can be. I don't think it's going to be this week, though. I do think they'll get some pressure on Carr, but I think they're going to struggle against the pass, and I think that that's going to force New Orleans to open up their game plan. So I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the under point total, like you mentioned, Tom. But I'm more apt to agree with Jason and Brandon that it's going to be over. And coming in, and I'm going to leap head first in and full bore hoot at faith. Because they have to turn it around at some point, and if they don't turn it around this week, the season is going to spiral out of control. So coming into tonight, I was leaning towards the Saints victory by maybe 5 points, definitely within a score. But going by this show's new mentality is kickers are for losers, or kicking is for losers. I'm going to go Saints 34, Raiders 31.
There you have it.
I still need a T-shirt made. Whoever wants to get on that. We need to do that. Kicking is for losers. I would totally rock that. Well, Tom, Jason, we very much appreciate you guys being on today. For anybody who missed it at the very beginning of the show, starting with Jason, where can people follow you on the World Wide Web?
Well, I'm still just new to this and learning it, but you can follow me on Twitter at LV_Hitman, or you can find me at on Instagram at LV_Hitman.
Jason, I have to know, are you LV_Hitman without a vowel in there?
Yes, I had to be without a vowel. Oh, I did forget to mention that. Yes, there is no vowel at the end in man or men. Sorry about that. It is just an MN.
Yeah. Meanwhile, people can find me. You can find my work at unabated.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at TV at Work. Would love to be talking sports with you guys.
Kept it short and to the point. Bob O, everybody follows you on Twitter. We don't need to give anything away for you. Just playing. Where can everybody follow you?
Not enough, because I don't make enough money based off of the views of my articles to get that Kicking is for Losers T-shirt. But Jason, Tom, it was an honor to be on with you. You guys were as entertaining as I thought you would be, and I would love to do this again. Even if the Saints don't play the Raiders, we'll get together a couple times in the off season. Jay, you and Kimmy, I miss you, partner. We got to get together soon. But folks, tune in to Tom and Jason's show. They are, and I've listened to them. I've been on with them. They put on a great product. They talk all sports, not just Raiders, and they tell it how it is. It's a very entertaining product. As far as I go, you can follow me Facebook, Bob Rose. I'm over on Twitter at BobbyR2613. All of my work, as well as Brendan's, Kyle Mosley's, and John Hendricks, can be found through the Saints News Network. We do all the Saints coverage for the SI.com site. Saints News Network can be found on Facebook and over on Twitter at Saints News. And as always, Bayou Blitz fam, you have been so great in supporting us, so great in promoting your show. Keep it up. We have a Bayou Blitz Facebook page. We have a Bayou Blitz Twitter page. Promote our work. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Hey, this is a show. This is a show that it entertains you, goes off the rails, makes you laugh, but brings you back. And it really makes you think about the game of football, not just the New Orleans Saints, but throughout the league. You've done a great job in promoting us so far. Make us a nationwide thoroughbred.
And for myself, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BT Boylan. You can also follow, like Bob said, my work with the Saints News Network, si.com/NFL/Saints. And I'll throw it out one more time because I didn't get to throw it out last week. If you guys haven't already, go check out my award-winning film, The Dancing Bulldogs, 16 Seeds Journey to the NCAA Tournament. You can find it over on YouTube. I'd really appreciate that. Tom, Jason, we appreciate you guys coming on. We'll make sure we get all of us out to Vegas and do the next show live, like I said at the beginning. But you guys have been great. As Bob said, follow those guys and their show, 5 days a week, like you guys said. And go head over and follow them on Twitter. If you follow Bob or I, we will make sure to retweet some of their stuff so you guys know exactly where to find it all. Bob, I'll let you carry us out.
I got no song singing skills anymore, so I can't do a sayonara. But Tom, Jason, again, it was an honor for joining. I thank you for the honor of joining us, and I can't wait to do this again. Thank you both.
Thank you so much for having us on. It was a pleasure.
It was always fun, guys. Take care. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Bayou Blitz family, you have a great night. Brennan and I will see you on our halftime show, on our Saints News Network halftime show during the Raiders-Saints game on Sunday. And make sure you tune in for our pregame show, too, where we'll get you all caught up on the inactives, the injury report, and the keys to the game.
Until then, guys, find peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you guys on Sunday.
Good night, guys.